take a look around real quick and check out some of the stuff. I still need to do some seam sealer along that edge there. Finish that up. Got a couple little holes. I'll probably just fill those with some epoxy putty or something like that. Where the welds, where I kind of missed a couple spots. Some of that stuff, that's how I fix it. Structurally it's strong enough, so the rest is just cosmetics. I got this thing to do, so I think what I'll do is I'll start doing this and work on this thing. It's kind of tricky on this one. Most of the time, I'll just tell you guys how I do these. Most of the time, it's not rusted all the way down to that edge. So if you can see there, it's rusted all the way down right to the line, and it's probably pretty thin right here. If I tried to grind that off, it'd probably be almost go right through. So I usually don't do it this way, but I usually just fix the top layer, because usually there's a hole there and I can usually weld onto here. So I'll lay something on top here and make this shape here kind of, and then work here and then do some pie cuts along the edge. So I'm just telling you guys to get some ideas. I use the same methods on a lot of the stuff I do on the other repairs that I'm going to use on this. But what I'm going to do on this one, because it's so bad, I'm going to cut down here. I'm going to try and peel this layer off and then cut right here, because see, this is still good right here. The metal's very solid in the middle where the wipers are, and that would be harder to make that round thing and then do this. Could be done if you wanted to do it. Just take a little more time. I would do it in sections. I would do like this part up to here, and then I would do this part in a section and then weld that in. It'd be easier than trying to do the whole thing all at once in one piece. So, and then just butt it together. So I'm going to cut here and cut right here, and then peel those off, cut here, peel that off to here. Kind of gives you an idea how I'm going to do it. And then I'll make up in here, and then I have to make an inner layer for here. This is something that they don't come with the patch repair panel anyway. This inner side is almost always bad. You see how this one is right here? There's two layers that come together to make this. If you see here, there's two layers. Then, so, you know, this has to be made as well. So it's going to be, that's where the work is. So even if you go and buy the repair panel for this, you got to make that inner layer, you know, that's on this part, and that does take a lot of time to make. So don't just figure you're going to buy the repair panel and have it be totally easy. Not an easy repair to do. So this has been primed now. Again, I'll seam seal that. Maybe I'll put some of the seam sealing stuff in the video. Those things I'm going to use the actual seam sealer I have here. I have this stuff. I'm going to use that for this. Then I do need to still grind all this down. All those welds, as you can see, they're kind of mountainy. I'll grind those down, and then I'll put prime that, and then put seam sealer. It needs to have the primer on it. This may not, you know, but I usually just have it all primed first, and then I put the seam sealer on. That's just the way I do it. So then I got those. That's ready. You know, it's ready for block still. Needs a lot more work. Like this here, look at, you know, I mean, those lines aren't done. I've got to go through and sand and block, and I've got little dings here from stuff like that. So I've got to go through and, you know, block sand everything after it gets all primed. That's just the first prime. It doesn't mean like this wave that's in here is not going to stay there. That's going to get, you know, blocked with guide coat, and then it's going to get probably a layer of glazing over that. It's really only about a 1/16. It looks like a lot more than that, but you don't, you know, people think Bondo's thick when it's not really. I've only got 2 coats on this, really. So that's, you can only put it on so thick, and then you take half of it off or more, you know, after you do it. So anyway, let's look at some other stuff. This thing's done here, other than, you know, I'm just not sure I'm going to take it. I'm definitely going to fix this. That's on the outside. You can see those little pits there from where it didn't quite have enough filler on. I'm going to use my glazing on that, and I don't have any glazing right now. Well, I do, but it's just not the hard sanding stuff. I'm going to get the one I like better. I don't know. Should I fix the dings? Yeah, I guess maybe I should. I don't know. Yeah, I'll probably just fix them. And then the welds here, if you can see those. Maybe I'll fix those. I don't know. I wasn't going to go crazy in the engine compartment on this thing. And then I've got to block sand this door. This one here, I was going to do maybe that. Let's look at the back side of it. So yeah, this is looking okay. And there's some pit spots here, but I think the door panel will cover most of that. So I'm not going to get all that stuff done. Because it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be white. A lot of that stuff basically isn't going to show up. The bottom part of this is pretty good. I mean, you compare to what it was. I mean, this is the one I did the big repair to the bottom of it. So, you know, and when it has the door panel to right here, it's not going to be seen much. I'm not sure what I'm going to do to it. Probably what I'll do is I'll finish and block out the doors. Just trying to think of what I'm going to do. Kind of talking to you guys as I'm going. I'm probably going to block out the rest of the doors. I'll do some seam sealer here on that part. And what I'll do is I'll block out the rest of the outside of the doors, and then I'll probably jam them, shoot the jams on them. I might even just shoot the whole door inside and out. Since I'm only going one color, I may do that on this. You know, it's a little different than I usually do. I usually will do all the jams first, and then I'll shoot the whole outside of it. And on this thing, I'm going to do in sections. It's just too, I don't know. I still don't do vans. They're just too big. I'd like to do the roof as one section. Usually I'll do the window section as a second, because trying to shoot all these corners and edges, it just seems to either get lost there, or, you know, you can get runs or something, because they're really hard to shoot this angle and get a nice even coverage on there and not have too much orange peel in it. I usually can shoot it pretty smooth if I do like this section. Okay, so if I'm doing two-tone, I would do that, but I don't know, maybe I'll shoot the whole sides of it when I get to that point. A long ways away from that though, because I still need to do, like, this line needs to be reworked, you know, this panel needs to be blocked, you know, there's a lot here to do still. I'm just working on the metal work right now. But anyway, those are some things, how I'm working on some of those other things, and I just wanted to show you guys real quick before we get started on this. So I'll show you what we're doing here. All right, so here's what I've made so far. I'm almost debating right now to just go buy the repair panel because there's so much here to do. I have fixed them many times, and here's the kind of thing that I make is I made this piece. You see how I slit cut the corner to make it wrap. So that makes it, helps it so you can bend it upward. And then just set it in place. And let's see if I can get it in there. I'll bring you guys back in. I hope you guys can see okay up there. It takes two hands to do this part, so I just set this in like this, and then I'll butt weld here and butt weld there, and then this has to line. The lines have to line up. I actually had to go underneath like that. Really hard to hold it in place. I'd have to, you know, I got to poke holes along here. We can do that real quick. All right, let's try this again. Take 2, take 3, take 4, I don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and pop my holes in here. So I usually will pop holes along the edge here. I think I've got about 5 holes there. I don't want to put it in the same place as the little void there, do I? How's that? Okay, so I'll pop holes in there, and then at the end I'll take my sandpaper when I'm done with doing the lines and everything. I get the lines really nice. You can't really see the line problem from mine, but put this repair panel in there like that. Of course, what I do, I hit right where the weld's voided, and then I'll take I take the cutoff wheel. So I'll put this up here in where my welds are in the way. I take the cutoff wheel and I follow this line right here so that I get that same line in the finish. And then I'll go ahead and fill it, and I'll actually probably take sandpaper and fold it and then cut that edge so you can get that exact line there. It looks exactly, you can't see where I actually repaired it because I actually fold the sandpaper and I make this line again. So let's get up close so you can see that. Again, I'll use the cutoff wheel and I'll grind. Let's say I have to weld, I'm gonna have to butt weld this area right here, right? So I'm deciding right now whether I'm gonna just go get the repair panel for it or not. Just because it's just gonna take me a lot of time to make it, and you got to make it in pieces. You can't make the whole thing. I usually will make maybe this piece that goes to here, then I'll make another piece. You know, I just piece it all together, weld it in place. I don't know. I could probably still do it. It's like I said, it's just a lot of time. And then I'll make a little piece for right here, and I'll just weld that in. I'll make a little piece for right here, and I'll weld it in, and then finish it out, and then cut this out. I'll probably cut that whole area out right there, and make this, and I'll slit cut along here the same way I did there, and slit cut along here so that it makes the curve, and just make it by eye. And then usually what I'll do, I'll put safari windows in. So if it is a little bit off, then it may not take the original glass, but it will take the safari window just fine. But usually mine will still even take the original glass as well. So again, on this one here, I'm not sure if I'm going to put safaris in it or not. So it's still going to work, believe me. I may have to put the glass in and then redo my metal work and do it again and then repaint. You know, that's just sometimes the realities of building a car. But that's kind of how I do it there, if you see. And then see, if you see, this is a little higher. This part is a little bit higher. Then I just take the grinder and grind it down to where it's even. So I like to leave something there so I know exactly how high I need to make it. So now the inner panel, that's the hardest part. You have to bend more of it's more than an L, right? If you look at it right here, you know, it's more than 90 degrees. So you have to bend it, and then what I'll have to do again, is I'll bend it. I'll have to cut this back a little bit more right here with the little saw, and then I'll bend it more than 90 degrees, and I'll put holes along here. Okay, and before I put this piece in, I'll clamp the other piece on and weld that in place. And so I'll have holes popped along here, plug welded in. It's actually a repair panel that I'm making. Really, I don't, you know, somebody could maybe butt weld one in there, but man, trying to grind that on the more than 90 degree or you could go out here and then cut it out and then try and butt weld a piece in. That's all you, man. If you want to try that one, that's going to be a major time problem there. Not something I'm interested in doing. So you'll see how I do it. We'll take a look at that in a minute, because I'm going to actually make this piece right now. Regardless of whether I buy this panel, this whole piece, the inner panel still has to be made by hand. There's no other way. You can't. I think you can buy a dash, but well, it would be a bit of work to put one in. You got to cut right here, and I'm not sure how it attaches to this. So you'd have to cut down here, cut across. You can see the actual original weld right here. Put a whole new dash in. Nope, I think I'll fix it. You guys that want to do that, you know, like I said, if you're trying to do super perfect work, you know, that's what you're looking at. But I make mine look really nice. You can't tell the difference. You know, from I'd say 5 feet away, I could make it so nice doing it the way I do stuff that you would never know that it wasn't done the other way. So, you know, it's that 5% difference when you're going, you know, that craziness and, you know, making it really nice. I'm not saying it's crazy really, but I'm just saying that you're going that far. It's like, you know, I don't know, then it starts getting expensive, then you start costing a lot of money, and then, you know, then the project doesn't become fun anymore, becomes work, money. Nah, I like to make it fun. Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. We'll take a look at that. Noise alert. Gonna get loud real quick here. Seems like there's enough metal left there. Let's make a piece. This is my mistake pieces here. So we'll try cutting this bar here. Just do a sample cut. And it needs to go, it goes, if you see this here starts really narrow down there and it goes wider and wider and wider. So that's why I have a larger piece. You have to kind of follow that. It's not that easy to make. So I'll just bend it and then I'll just bend it somewhere. We'll take a look. It's a little hard for me to see here when I'm at the angle I'm at, but I should have cut that one. Let's see. All right here. heat cut the sheet metal, but I gotta make it more than 90 degrees. I gotta cut some off of here. All this stuff here is like super time consuming. Okay. So, just need to make this more than 90. Let's use the duckbill pliers, shall we? Alright, so good old duckbills, had to find them. They were in the right place. Let's see. Kinda gotta look at the other one. Yeah. Can always bend it back a little bit, right? So he's something like this. Like I said, you could cut and weld and butt weld this in if you wanted to. I'm actually going to drill it and plug weld it. So, like I could weld along that edge maybe and grind it. Yeah, that's how I did it last time. A little tight in there. Yeah, a lot of thinking going on, guys. A lot of thinking. This stuff is very slow going. Could probably put a clamp inside there and weld that in. This is pretty thick metal right here. It's just very pitted. It just doesn't look very good. It's actually pretty thick still. I don't need it to be totally brand new. I think this little hump right here is hidden right there. Let me grind that off. Alright, so let's check this out. I like to fit pretty flush under there. Well, that's kind of how it's gone in. I think I can just weld that edge and then I'll straighten it up. Once it's welded, it'll be easier to straighten. Yeah, at least I have the gas gauge hole. Over there I don't have it, so it gets a little trickier on the other side, but it's no problem. We'll get through it. So, you know what? Let's weld some stuff in. I'm trying to get some stuff. I'm gonna get some fast motion here going, but it's hard for me to do fast motion when I'm doing this because I have to keep stopping and then thinking too much, and then it gets kind of irritating in the fast motion stuff. So anyway, I'll bring you guys back in a little bit. And so I made this shape here, and what I'm going to do is cut off that edge there, just that metal edge, and then put this underneath, and I'm actually going to weld it to the back side of here. I know it's not going to be exactly the way it was. I'm going to have stacked metal back here, but I've done this before and it does work. It is a little bit tough to fix that area. So, and then what I'll do is I'll just cut this part after. Alright, let's see if we can do this. Noise alert. Try and cut off this little section here. spicy meatball. Okay. Got my little piece made here. I just took it and mirrored it like that so that the angle's the right way. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it inside right there, and then try and drill a hole here and plug weld through to hold it in. That's my plan. I think I'll use the cutters here. I'll bring you guys back in a second here. All right, this is getting tricky. Have to fit inside that little area. Let's see how it goes here. This will be a video series, just alone. It's tricky to do from the top. It's easier to shove it up from underneath. Okay, so let's see. I need to cut it just a little bit shorter, I think, on this side. Let's see if I can do that in this section of the video. Oh, let's go to right here. Take that off. Like I said, this stuff is slow going. I mean, this is like, oh, I gotta, it's too thick. Slide in there. I can weld it right there though, if you see. It wouldn't look that bad. Yeah, that's about the right shape. Let me get this thing trimmed a little bit. Got that little edge right there. Gotta take that down. Is that precise? Well, that's a little tricky. So I guess I'll bend these edges down a little bit. Once I get this welded, I think I can bend that down. And then I'll drill some holes right here. I'll just drill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes. And then plug weld those up. That'll hold that piece in. It's about the right shape. Believe it or not, the window is actually going to fit in this when I'm done. It always does. I've done a few, so they're not quite this bad, but it's all the same. Just depends on. So I got to finish cutting off this edge over here, making that edge. And I'll bring you guys back in a minute. you guys is there's so much little stuff to know on this stuff. I take this little piece, shove it in here. You might go, well, Mike, it doesn't fit. Weld it right here, and then I'll knock this part down and weld it there, and it'll fit. Let's see how it goes. See if I can do this one-handed. Once I get it welded, I'll knock this edge back down again. And it's about close enough. Once I do that, once I weld it, then I can tap that edge back down. Let's take a look. Well, you might say to yourself, that's ugly. Well, let's look at it in a minute. That's what the grinder's for. Look at that. Yeah, anyway, I'll just do the same thing there. I'll just put a little piece in, weld it up, and I tap it down. You know, I do a lot of that kind of thing on these holes. I'm even taking sometimes where I've, like if you have these ones like this, these holes in the windows here, you almost always have them there. I'll take a piece and I'll weld a little tab on it and pull it up, and then I'll just weld around, tack it in place, and then cut my piece, my tab off, and then finish welding it up and fill it. Make sure it's just a little low. It doesn't need to look perfect. The window's going in there. It's like that. That's not bad. You know, it's got a little bit of, I missed a little spot right there maybe, but it doesn't really matter. Once it's got filler, it's fine. How are we looking now? It's all in there. Little stuff like that. So on this side, I started to cut this away, and I thought, you know what? Instead of, last time I cut like another edge along here, it took me a long time to cut that. So I think what I'm going to do on this side is I'll just cut some grooves with the good old rotary file. I'll just get in here and just go kiss it along here and cut some big, you know, like cut it like this. You'll see, I'll cut it real quick and I'll show you. And then that way when I lay my piece in, it'll butt up against this edge, the old stuff. No, I don't have the coronavirus. I'm just cracking up. Anyway, but yeah, everybody probably is going to get it someday, but or something, who knows. But anyway, I'll just cut along here, go along the edge, and then put a bunch of those in there, and then I will put the piece in there, an L-shaped piece like I did here. You can kind of see how those look. They look kind of rugged right now, okay? And I'm going to get my, like right here you can see there's welds sticking out. They're a little too high. What I do is I get a cutoff wheel and put it on the grinder and just kind of clean those up really carefully. It takes forever to do. But you'll see I'll do the same thing over here and all the way along here. The inner one is actually harder than putting on the outer one. Even when you have, especially when you have the repair panel, but even without the repair panel, I think the inner part's definitely harder than the outer. It's still very, both are very slow going. I will spend a couple days on this front. I don't really have much else to do right now, so I guess I'll just keep working on this, huh? Well, anyway, I guess I'm just going to wrap it up here. Well, let me finish up. Let me do this little spot for you. So this is what I was talking about. Just give myself some weld points. I'll just weld right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, all the way along. And then I'm going to make these in pieces. I'm not going to try and make the whole thing, because remember, it goes from a very small area here, because the dash kind of actually goes round and goes down. I'm over exaggerating. That dash kind of goes down, and then this part goes straight across. So it's thicker here than it is over here. You know that when you put Safari windows in. So it's easier for me to make it in pieces. Trying to make the whole thing is a lot harder. And then just butt weld them together like I did here. You see, I still need to do a little patch piece for right there. I got a little too wide. It's gonna be a little tougher to fix. My corner right here is not correct. It needs to be more gradual. So I don't know, I can either just use that as the inner piece and then have the outer layer be right, whatever, and then grind it up, or put a little piece in here to repair it and make it right, because I went too far. It's got to be just like these. Now, to get this angle, you can tape your glass in and just kind of look at it. Or what I usually do is I have new Safari windows, and I'll put them in, and then I'll just put them down and then just double check it. What I'll do is I'll eye it rough myself, because I kind of know the shape. It needs to look the same as it does up here, right? So I'll eye it and I'll get it as close as I can, and usually it's right. So, but I'll put the Safaris in and double check it, and before I'm totally done. And then if it's not right, then if it's too high, I'll take my hammer and chisel, I'll knock it down, put more filler in, stuff like that to get it right, so that it looks just like these up here, the same slow radius like that. Kind of do the same thing here. I do most of this by eye on these, and it works. It's just, you got to be really observant. You got to be looking at every little bit of it. It's got to be just right, because VWs, they do have a really tight tolerance, and if anything's off just a little bit, like your windows won't go in and stuff like that. So you got to have it right. See, like that there, just a little bit low right here, and I tap that part down. So just fill that in, put a filler on there, get it right, make sure it's all the radius is right there, going that way. It just takes a lot of time. Doing these windows always takes forever to do, especially when they have really bad rust inside. You just plan on spending a couple of days on fixing them. I think I could probably wrap up the outside in one day if I didn't have to do videos. Didn't notice the camera fell a couple times. So that happens because it's really not easy to do. The camera's always in your way. Alright, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Keep watching this thing. Let's build some buses. Talk to you in the next one.